Welcome back to Season 5 of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Join me, Brad, each week as my guests and I share incredible and powerful sobriety stories. We're here to show sobriety is possible, one story at a time. Let's go. Derek didn't think alcohol would become his story until it did. 3 DUIs, withdrawal, seizures, and a last day of drinking that almost ended everything. Today, he's been sober since October of 2016. And he's living proof that a complete turnaround is possible. And this is Derek's story on the Sober Motivation Podcast. How's it going, everybody? February 2nd, a Monday. I love Mondays. I really do. Never thought I would be that person, but I guess I am. Thank you, as always, for everybody plugging into the podcast and sticking with us. On the stories here, I posted up that last episode, which I got a few positive feedbacks from about sharing a little bit more of those kind of episodes, I guess, of a little bit more of information and obviously no story. And they can be a lot shorter as well, so you can plug into them and maybe the things make sense and maybe they don't. I guess time will tell. I also want to mention too, if you're looking for some support on all of this, definitely consider the Sober Motivation community with the 30-day free trial, a bunch of meetings, and a really cool group of people to get you engaged. And the more that we meet up with the community members and everything, and I'm just thinking, initially, this whole journey seems to be for people about giving up drinking, about getting sober, but it seems to shift so quickly about living life on life's terms, living with purpose, finding a way to help others, and really plugging into what maybe we weren't aware of in the time when we were drinking. So I really see it as more of a staying sober than a get sober type thing. We definitely have a lot of people who start out in their earlier days too. And a lot of people start on their first day, their day one, and they've been here 1 year, 2 years later. It's pretty incredible just to be witness to the changes that people make, how they carry themselves, how they share, how their relationships change with maybe their wives or husbands or partners or kids or coworkers, and just with each other in the group, and how people grow closer. And a lot of people, get to meet up in person, and we have our annual Sober Motivation meetup that we just did a lot of the big planning for, and that's going to be in August, kind of in my hometown-ish. Kind of where I was born. I didn't really grow up there. I mostly grew up in the U.S., but it's going to be an incredible meetup, and I'm so excited for it. So I'm throwing it out there. If you feel like you're doing all this alone and it's hard to talk to people around you, or maybe they don't understand, come and hang out with us. The first 30 days is completely free. You get access to roughly 50 or more meetings a month. I host 3 a week over there too, so I would love to meet you. And I have another really, really exciting announcement that I kind of want to announce, but I'm going to just leave it at that. But I've always dreamed of having an app called Sober Motivation, to where you could do some really cool stuff and get connected. I see community as the path forward. I know this can be done on your own, because I know people who have done it. Like, I'm not naive to that. I know that is a possibility. But I see the level up in the growth in those that do it with the community. They grow faster. I feel like they grow further. And I feel like they enjoy the process maybe a little bit more. And they make some new friends along the way with people who understand where they've come from. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that. I think the way that the world is heading and has been heading is everything is kind of virtual. A lot of things are virtual. And I think that's always going to be there. But I think the community connection, human to human connection, even if we do it virtually and we don't meet up every day, there's so much benefit to that. There really is. And I mean, this whole addiction, this whole alcohol thing, I mean, the main goal there is to isolate us from the world. That's where a lot of people end up towards the end of their drinking, is just isolated. Once started out as a party, and now it's just them drinking and hoping nobody figures out. And I just hate that. I hate that about all of this, because I don't believe that there's anything broken about you. I don't believe there's anything broken about any of us. I believe we found something that worked, and the thing we found that worked, it was a highly addictive substance. And it changes our brain chemistry over time and then makes us crave it and want more. And we feel like we're weak because this has taken over our life and that there's nothing that we can do about it. But that's not true. There is. And there's people out there that will help you. And there's people out there that are regular, everyday people, and you would have no idea that they ever struggled. Just like people have no idea that you're struggling. So the Sober Motivation app, the main mission is to just end the silence around all of this. I think alcohol has been normalized in our cultures for some time now. And I see us heading in that direction. Let's just normalize sobriety. Like, it's not weird that you choose not to drink. It's not weird that this impacted your life and created some consequences and distanced you and separated you from what was important in the world. And it's okay. We've been there, especially the people in the community. Like, we get it. So I would love to see a few of you there. Stay tuned, because I'm going to be inviting all of you to test out the new Sober Motivation platform, and it would mean the world for all of you to come and check it out. Now let's get to Derek's story here on the podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Today we've got Derek with us. Derek, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm glad to jump on here and, share your story with everybody.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. So what was it like for you growing up?
We grew up in the suburbs. It was a very peaceful, I'd say, like first 10 to 12 years of my life. I have an older brother who, a couple years older than me. He started getting in a little bit into pot, which quickly turned into other drugs. And back in the early 2000s, there was a drug. It was called cold and congestion pills, but he really got into just, if you eat enough of those, it would, I guess, mess him up. And that led down the road to other drugs. And during that time, I'm not sure if she had a problem prior to me being born, but my mother started drinking a bit. That kind of, as I got older, took a lot of pressure off me, because all the attention was on my brother and his drug use. And then my mom, her drinking would be kind of center of attention as well. So I always said, like, I'm never going to drink. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm seeing what this is doing to the family, and I'm going to live my life sober. And that was at like a young age. But of course, you get into a senior in high school, and I wasn't a partier, but me and my best friend, we would kind of dip into his father's liquor cabinet, and we'd go to the convenience store down the street and get orange juice and put like a shot in it, have a drink and go. And I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't want more at the time. It didn't really feel like a problem until a graduation party. I kind of realized that I don't have an off switch. I drank almost a full bottle of Jameson, not partying, just we were back at his house after a party and I was sipping on it. And then he looked over and he said, "You've kind of had a lot of that." And I immediately went into the spins and had a 3-day hangover. Didn't touch alcohol again for a while. And then when I was in college, most of my friends had went away to college. I went to the community college near my house. So I was kind of adjusting to meeting new people. They kind of drank. I felt kind of awkward not drinking at like different parties. So I started drinking a little bit more, and I knew it was going to be an issue when, again, like the first time around, I just couldn't stop. Like, I'm not someone that can just have a drink. I can't just have, I still can't just even have like a piece of pizza. I'll eat the whole thing. So I go until I'm sleeping. And that became a problem for, I'd say, 7 or 8 months. I was drinking pretty regularly, definitely more than, my friends. And when I was 19, I just kind of put I got to focus on school. Like, this is crazy. I was also young. And because I grew up in a household where like everything that happens in the house stays in the house, like I didn't really ever talk about like my drinking with friends. I didn't talk about like my brother, the things that would go on like with, my mother and her drinking. And, so I didn't really have like an outlook of like, oh, this is going to be like a problem for like the rest of your life. To me, I was like, I'm a teenager. Like, I'm just going wild. Like, one day I'm going to wake up and be an adult and just like have it figured out, but it doesn't work that way. I didn't have another drink until I was 21. And by then it had been like enough time where I had a new group of friends. Half of them didn't drink and half of them like would party like in college. So like I would go to the parties, but I would drink water. And I remember one night we went to a hookah bar when those were really popular. And I ordered a martini. And they look at me like, you're drinking tonight? And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna have like a drink. I'm 21 now. I'm going to be responsible about it. Next thing, had that. And then I ordered a second one and like, oh, you're really drinking tonight. I'm like, I guess I am. And it was like a big, like back then it wasn't, oh, Derek's drinking too much. It was like, oh man, Derek's partying tonight. Like, let's go. Because like, they just had never seen me drink. And it was kind of off to the races from there. I was in the restaurant business. So it was just like the big hangout and drinking on the weekends, turn to drinking a couple days a week, turn to drinking every single night. When you're 21, you can drink until 5 a.m. and be up to work at 10. You can go to class. You can go through life without really anything like holding you back when you're that young. And it was just like, it became a big problem and I started getting in trouble, with the law. Yeah. But yeah, my household growing up, just get back on track, it got pretty chaotic. And I think like with my drinking, a lot of it was because like I was so stressed out from not just like having just to talk to people. Like I thought like if I talked to my friends, my friends would like, they complain about like not being able to get the car for the night or like maybe going through a breakup. And I'd be like, oh, my brother was coming off of, meth and attacked me with a butcher's knife. Like I didn't really know like how to interject that into a story because for me, like that kind of event was like an everyday thing for me. So, I wanted to like kind of teeter on like I don't want anyone to look at me like what did he just say? like your family's nuts. But it's
yeah,
it was pretty chaotic.
Yeah, I mean a lot of stuff you mentioned there too. I think hits home for me and probably a lot of listeners too, right? Of like growing up and it was never really told to me what happens in the house kind of stays in the house, but I kind of read between the lines. I think as a youngster too, and then. I think for me personally, like it just was, and I kind of pick up on it maybe a little bit from you. We just internalize everything, right? And we don't have any place to share it or talk about things, right? Where do you kind of go and talk about these heavy things that you're going through? And I mean, when you look back at that sort of thing, I mean, when do you pick up in your life this idea of alcohol is bad and you're never going to do it? Because that really interests me because I would say it's like, I don't know, a 60-40 split, maybe of the 225 stories of people on the podcast that have grown up with somebody who is struggling and then they will commit to themselves of like, you see what's happening. So I'm not going to do that. And then it seems to be for a lot of people too, there's like that shift that kind of happens in everything. So I'm interested sort of in that and like how you process that like in those earlier years.
Yeah. So I remember when I was younger, I remember like just the reactions that my dad would have when my mom would drink. And I would see the reactions when my brother would come home messed up. And he drank too. I mean, there really wasn't much, like he wasn't willing to try. So like it just seeing like my dad just like get like so upset and like, my dad was like kind of like just that blue collar, like, he was like tough on us, but I wasn't afraid of him. I was afraid of making him mad. And I think there's a distinction there, like, because we're really close and, now that I'm older, I realize he just wanted us like always like bring out our best effort. But, just seeing his reactions and like my mom would have drinks and when you're younger, like you don't really think of anything like, taking us home and my dad flipping out, like, what are you doing? Like driving them home. I remember one birthday just asking my mom, like, hey, can you not drink? Cause she would act funny. Like when I was like, you act funny, like, whatever that means. And I just knew I didn't like it. I didn't like the smell. I always hated like going in for like a hug and a kiss and, like just like that, like, what is that? That kind of feeling and just seeing those reactions. And as I got older, the fights progressed like with my father and my mother. And I didn't enjoy, it was just it made me just want to leave the house and just be, cause like the blowouts would like happen. And, when you're drinking and you start arguing, like you don't stop arguing, it's like the perfect concoction of just like a myriad of like bad things that can happen. So for me, it was like, I don't want to do this. Like this is like crazy to me. But at the same time, you get that kind of feeling when you're hanging out, when you're like 19, 20 and like you're with college friends or you're trying to date and you're like, I feel like if I tell them like I'm sober, like that's gonna like hold them back because they could like, if you're with someone and like they're 20, 21, I don't want to like change their lifestyle. But I also don't want to be like, cause it was awkward sometimes at parties. I could have like a water, or like a soda and like, how come you're not drinking? Why are you not drinking? Why not drinking? And if you're with someone, they're like, oh, I don't like that attention. Like that's kind of like rubbing off. So for me, it's like, I don't want this lifestyle, but I also don't want to like feel awkward. So like, I always kind of looked forward to that point in my life, kind of like where I am now at like 37, where it doesn't really matter. Like I have a family, I have my house. I don't need to like, if I'm not out, like I'm not going to get like pressured into like doing anything or just feel like that awkward kind of, feeling. So I was kind of like glamorized, like just getting older, and just skipping those years in an odd way.
Yeah.
But
It's interesting there too. Like I feel like in those years of like early development of like high schoolish, beginning college, it's for me anyway. And maybe this is coming out a little bit for you, relatable, is that I was so interested in sort of people pleasing and just trying to make friends and connect with other people. Like that was of the utmost importance, despite sort of the consequences I was experiencing. My parents always used to sit me down and say, why don't you just find new friends that you're not getting in trouble with all the time? Why don't you just kind of do this? Or like, why is this so important to you? I was like almost choosing my friends in some situations, like over my family. Like my family loved me, but when I reflect back on it, to go even a little bit deeper, I just had a hard time feeling and accepting maybe the love from them. And I was looking for this acceptance and connection and community and people. And I'm not here to say that any of them were bad people or I was a bad person. But when we got together, we did really dumb stuff. We made really poor choices. But I wasn't able to say, like, connect the dots of, hey, we're doing all of this. We should probably go our separate ways, And it's interesting in those years too. And you bring up like dating and how everything is going to go. I mean, did you realize at that point in your life, like 19, 20, 21, and when you started drinking again, like, were you aware that, okay, this is a problem. This looks way different than maybe what other people are doing, or no?
oh yeah. So when I started drinking again, like I said, at the time we were 21, so like drinking and going out a lot was often. But I was on the side. Like I'd stop at a bar and have like 4 or 5 beers and then go to the pregame and then we'd go to the bar. So, and because like I put down enough, like I would drink enough beer, like I would start, like it would take about 7 or 8 before I knew like people would be like definitely catch on. Like I knew that was like my like threshold of like, all right, nobody's going to really know. And they're not really going to know a difference once I get to the bar and drinking anyway. I could just say like, oh, I didn't really eat today. That's why like I got drunk so fast. None of my other friends were doing that. Like it was just me at 21, 22 going to a hole in the wall dive bar with like a bunch of like middle-aged guys, like coming off of work or whatever. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm the only one like doing this. Like there's no one else that's my age that's doing this kind of thing. And then my friends started catching on and it became, when you're 21, I was like, oh, who got the most drunk last night? Oh man, you were hammered. Da, da. Like once in a while, like it's funny, like, like, hey man, you got really drunk, but don't worry, like you didn't do anything stupid. Like, we made sure you got home and da, da, da. But when you become that person every time, like, oh, Derek's going to get shit faced, he's, it's Monday night and he's putting down, vodka drink after vodka drink after vodka drink and only here for trivia, like I knew that it was a problem. And then like for me, the nights that I would go out and just try to force myself into having one or two were the nights that I got obliterated. If I went and just said, I'm going to drink tonight, sometimes I wouldn't have that much, like as much as I thought I would. But the nights I would specifically say, like, I don't want to look like an idiot tonight. I just want to go. I just want to have a couple beers. Like, just have like, we'll get through like trivia. Or I'll just watch the game or we'll just do this and, let everyone know like I'm not out of control. Were the nights that I wound up like finishing the beer before I got from the bar to the table and be like, oh shit, and turning back around and getting another one,
Yeah.
It just, and I don't think, unless you're in it, like people like will say like, why don't you just stop and just have like a couple? It's like,
Yeah.
the sheer, like, I don't know, your brain just goes to doom. Like you need to have more, like, and it's, so I could always just have none or have a lot, but I enjoyed it. And it did kind of get me through those years of like my brother and, different times, like with my mother, like the fights, like I knew like, okay, like I'm not like them. At least I'm waiting until the night to drink. At least I'm like, I always come up with every excuse like, well, at least I'm not doing this, so I'm not that bad. And then, my first time I got arrested, it kind of flipped, and I was 23 at my first arrest. So things kind of happened young. It wasn't in high school. Like high school, like nobody really ever pressured me in high school. I think it's because my brother took so much attention in the school, like with like the things that he was doing that, like I smoked cigarettes in high school, but I also was afraid of getting in trouble. So like I wasn't in the bathroom with everybody else. Like I'd wait till I was after school. Like I didn't want to get in trouble. Like I was like, and people say, like, oh, I never knew like you smoked. Like, yeah, I actively smoked in high school. Like it wasn't a cool thing for me to do. It was like a stress. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, things kind of like escalated quick, especially with like my friends, and you realize you're different when like they're having one or two drinks tops and then they're out of there. And then you're like, oh, I guess gotta run to the bathroom. And then after they leave, you hop back right into the bar and keep drinking. That happened almost every time.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I mean, that what you said there too is really hit home, is like we convince ourselves that everything for us, the way we're going about it is so much different, right? Like we're sort of an exception to, maybe the rule. Or and I think what happens in that space too, because I mean, I did that. Like that was a huge excuse for me to keep going, is that they were maybe further along with their journey and I wasn't able to connect the dots, but like I ended up right there, if not worse than all the people that I was like, hey, I'm not like them. And then I was like, okay, when I look back at it now, you can see it clear as day. But at the time, it's a very confusing spot, I think, for so many people. And a lot of people listen to the show, like they might be somewhere else on the spectrum of how their drinking looks. But I just think the longer we keep it around, like involved in our life, we always leave the door open for things to go bad, as opposed to quitting. Like, why wait till the end, And that's another interesting thing too, is, why do we wait until sort of the bottom falls out when it's like, hey, we could maybe see, right, from other people, and maybe that's something, we might not completely understand, but learn from sort of other people that, this is kind of where it takes you. But we do, man, I mean, human nature, dude. I mean, we do such a good job. I think our brain does to protect us from, that's not going to be my story.
Yeah. And I think too, like, especially working in the restaurant business, you see like that kind of lifestyle. And I was in the restaurant business for like half my life. So it's just so easy to like, oh, well, all my work people, like we all hang out afterwards. Well, where are we going to go after work at 11 o'clock? Well, we're going to go to the bar, and we're going to drink. And, and I never did any other, like I didn't never touch hard drugs. Like I just stuck to drinking. But I would see like the downfall of people like really quickly. But then on the other side, I would see people that were 30 years sober that were bartending, like they have like that strong, like some people just like they have it where like they don't like need to like be near it. After the third time I got in trouble with the law, like I got out of the restaurant business as fast as I could. I knew I had to make a change. I didn't have a plan because I was still actively drinking, but I knew something had to give. But it's like that kind of this like just like a weird pressure that and I think even like when we got sober, it wasn't cool to be sober then. Like you didn't have like a lot of like people like yourself like having like going online and just like, hey, being sober is good. Like it's a good thing. Like look what it's done for me. I look back and I think like Brandon Novak from like the CKY Jackass crew. Like I know like he has like a big following and he's like one of the first people I started listening to. I remember John Mulaney was on a podcast in maybe 2015 and I was still drinking then, but I was like, oh, I guess like there are people that are willing to put their story out there. Maybe I'm not alone here. Even though, a lot of people like at places like AdCare and like AA wouldn't exist if people didn't have problems, but it's such an isolating thing to like, like being an alcoholic that you truly think like, oh, I must be like crazy. Like people like, like I must be like, the only one going through this, but it's just not the case.
Yeah. And that is so true. I mean, the landscape has changed so much, I think, with sort of the more science that's coming out and showing, people like the actual effects of alcohol. And how much it takes from us, even if we're not at the far end of the spectrum and experiencing all these consequences, how much it takes from our life. I mean, if I think a lot of the people around me that drink, and no judgment for them, like they do their thing and whether they need to get sober, whatever is for them to decide. But I see them working hard all week. Right. Mm-hmm. And then I see them on the weekend is kind of like, like let's drink. And then that's sort of the cycle, right? And then decades go by of work all week, drink all weekend. and then, still be in the same place after like 10 or 15 or 20 years, like how do you make any progress? I look at the weekends now so much different. It's like, that's an opportunity to like be present. I mean, in today's world, I have 3 kids. So it's like I need to hang out with my kids but even before that, it was like, this is my opportunity to sort of maybe get an edge, right? Where a lot of people are sleeping through the weekend. This could be sort of a competitive edge in a sense. But yeah, people started, more and more people sharing about it, and the benefits they're experiencing, I think, has been really helpful for all of us. I mean, you said you were, in trouble with the law 3 times. Is this related to drinking? Like in one way because of drinking?
Yeah, all 3 times. First time I got arrested for a DUI. We were drinking. My buddy needed a ride home. I took him home. And on the way home, there was a car in front of me, and there was a cop in front of that car. And the light turned green. The cop turned his lights on and pulled the person over in front of him. And the car in front of me started, I floored it, but then they stopped quick because I didn't realize this, but the cop was opening his door. So I didn't want to drive into the car in front of me. So I whipped around and I clipped the cop car door.
Oh man.
And then I was like, oh shit. So I pulled over, and he gets out and he's like, what the hell, like, what are you doing? And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I didn't realize, I thought you were going to pull the guy over. I didn't realize you were going to be getting out of your car. And then, and I blew, and I was over, spent the night in jail, which should have been it for me, but I still continued to drink. And 2 years later, I got pulled over in front of my house 3 days before Christmas. I was on my way home from work. I had a few drinks at work. Stopped at the ATM to get money out to go Christmas shopping that next day. And I got pulled over. I saw cops driving through the neighborhood. I'm like, oh, what are they doing? I wonder what's going on in the neighborhood. And I get to another stop sign. There was another cop. And then I look behind me. They're all behind me. I'm like, oh, they're here for me. and so all their lights go on. And they said, oh, someone called, you're driving erratically. And at the time I was driving a Mustang. So like I kind of drove erratically, sober or not. And I mean, you're just kind of a target. You're not a target. Like that's a bad way to look at it, because I was driving like an idiot. And then, you had a couple drinks to the mix. So I got arrested that time. And then the time after that, it was only a month after I got my license back from that second time. I had started taking Ubers for a while, because those became a thing. And I actually was only drinking once, maybe twice a week. I actually I was like, oh, I'm gonna maybe I should get back into school. Maybe bartending and waiting tables, isn't a full lifetime thing I want to do. So I was starting to get my shit together. And then I started having 1 beer after work. 1 beer, I'll be fine, drive home. Everybody has a drink. And of course that leads to, I could have 2 beers. What's that, what difference is that going to make? And then that led to 3 to 4 to 5, and that was right back to drinking, and not taking Ubers. And I got pulled over in my neighborhood, and that was the 3rd time. And then I was like, okay, well now my life's over. 3 times they were in Rhode Island. If you get the 2nd time, they dropped the DUI and it was a refusal. The 1st time I got arrested, they had dropped it and it was reckless driving. But if you got something within 5 years, you were looking at jail time. But I was able to get out of that. They took my license for, I think, 17 months. I was put on probation for a year. And I kind of just spiraled. And I started drinking every day again. I started drinking more. And then my tolerance kept growing. And middle of August through October, I was drinking upwards to anywhere between 25 to 30 beers a day. And I was starting at I'd wake up, I'd watch the news, and then I started getting the shakes, and I started getting anxiety, and I'd have a drink, and I was telling my girlfriend at the time, hey, I don't think this is going to end well. And like you said, so go to detox, go get help. But your brain says, no, I have to keep doing this. When you're an addicts, your brain doesn't tell you, hey, you should stop drinking. Your brain says, hey, you need more. You got to keep drinking. Let's not stop here. And that, then one morning I had gotten taken to the hospital to stay in the drunk tank because I was walking home from the liquor store. I fell and I couldn't get up, and a guy ended up stopping. He helped me into his car. He dropped me off at my house. I tried to walk to my girlfriend's. She lived in the neighborhood, and I fell again. And it was weird because I was trying to cut down on drinking Now I know that I was having like these like mini seizures that were going on, and like my body was just breaking down. And the cops came and they talked to me for a while. I actually had a really good heart to heart with the cop, and I said like I'm like, I gotta stop doing this. Like he's like, yeah, he's like, a lot of people are pretty pissed off at you right now. Your girlfriend didn't even want you over, you know, and you're falling like near her front lawn. Mm-hmm. And we had a good conversation about like getting things straight. The next day I cut my beer intake down to from like 25 to 30 to 12. I woke up the next morning feeling like really clammy. Like I didn't really realize how withdrawals could kill you. And I woke my girlfriend up. I was like, hey, I think we need to go to the liquor store. I'm like something like bad is happening. And I'm like, my body's just telling me like I needed a drink. And she's like, you're a piece of shit. It's 8 a.m. Like I'm trying to sleep. Like this is it. She's like, I'm done. Like I can't keep doing this. And I said, oh no, I completely agree. Like I'm out of control, but I need to get to the liquor store. Yeah. And then she took me to the liquor store. I walked in. And then I woke up in an ambulance to EMTs like screaming at me, like, what drugs are you on? What drugs are you on? Like what's going on? And my eyes were like stinging. I'm like, what the hell is like going on here? And I'm like, I'm not on drugs. I'm not on drugs. Like, what's going on with my face? Like, I thought like something like happened to me, like really bad. And they're like, well, you had a seizure, and like on your way down, you face planted into a shopping cart. So like I split like from here down like through my nose. So like there was like just blood in my eyes that they're trying to clear out, and they're trying to figure out like what I was doing, that like I had a full blown grand mal seizure in the store. And they're like, you did this with drinking? And I was like, yeah. Like, how much do you drink? And I was like, a lot. I was like, I guess enough. So they take me to the hospital. I get stitched up, and the doctor was telling me, hey, you should really go to detox. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, this is getting like way too far. But tomorrow's my birthday. I'm like, could I come back like Monday? And he's like, well, the hospital's never closed, but like, I want you to know that if you leave the hospital, I shouldn't suggest this, but you need to go to a liquor store because this is going to happen again. And I was like, okay. And my girlfriend's looking at me like, are you serious? Like, you're not going to like take advantage of this? I was like, well, my birthday's tomorrow, you know, like turning 28, like really was going to matter. So off to a liquor store we went. We pulled into the parking lot, and I was getting out of the car, and I had another grand mal seizure. I woke up in an ambulance again, and it was the same EMT screaming at me. They were almost like guardian angels. Like, and they was like, we gave you the chance. Like, what do you do? Like, and like, you're staying in the fucking hospital now. Like, I don't care. We see you again. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, like they were mad, and I don't blame them. Like, I'm wasting their time. Like, I'm just, you know, they could be like actually like helping other people. And here I am just like falling my way through liquor stores throughout the city. And then that's when I took it serious. I don't remember going to the hospital. I went into DTs. I ended up spending my birthday the next day in a chemically induced coma because the DTs were getting so bad. I spent the week in the hospital. And that was the last day I had a drink. And it was like, it was enough for me. I knew I was done anyway. I was like glad I survived it. And it was just kind of like that kick in the ass that I needed. I went to AdCare. I had court ordered alcohol sessions I had to go to anyway. And I finally started talking to someone and be like, hey, I need to get things off my chest. And I just kind of unloaded on like this therapist of like my childhood and things that I kept to myself. Like, just like, I always had like this kind of like pent up anger that like I kind of wanted to mask with like alcohol, which a lot of times would just only bring out the anger more. And just getting to the root of why I started, because alcohol was the answer to the problems I was having. And, you know, a lot of people who get newly sober will say, like, I just want to get back to myself. It's like, no, you don't, because that person was the one that ended up making the choice to pick up the bottle or pick up the drug or pick up the, you know, whatever the vice is. Yeah, it was a pretty wild last day of drinking for me. But I feel like, you know, if God stepped in, he definitely stepped in that day. You know, I was on my way to drink more, and he just literally just said, nope, I'm taking the wheel now. He's like, you're going to go to these liquor stores and you're not going to buy a thing. So it was a blessing, but it sucked at the time. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing that too. Did you know, I mean, I hear from a lot of people that from drinking, they have no idea that where it can get to as far as the seizures, as far as you can die, as far as the detox. Like, did you have awareness of that, like kind of coming up to this, or no?
I knew there were withdrawals. I never thought that I think because I was so used to drinking that, and like, especially being in like the bar scene, like you would just kind of drink every night. So I thought I just had like a tolerance. I would go through stretches like before that binge happened. I was down to like drinking once or twice a week. I was making up for it for the rest of the week. Like I was getting absolutely hammered those 1 or 2 days a week. But I thought if I just was able to kind of cut it down reasonably, like I'd be fine. But, going from 30 beers to 12, I mean, it's pretty shocking to the body. And then you're not getting nutrients because I wasn't really eating. And what I was eating, it was just kind of like sweets. And it's like I always kind of like craved like sugar. Of course, now I look it up and it's all like science and stuff. But like at the time, I didn't really know like the depths that I didn't realize it could kill you.
Yeah.
And then they sent me home with Klonopin and they said, just, if you're getting anxious, just take one of these.
Mm.
And I never took pills. So they gave me 30 of them and I took one. I'm like, oh, these make me feel great. I'm like, if I knew these things existed, I never would have drank in the first place.
Yeah.
And
Did you black out at all taking those or no?
I didn't black out, but I was taking like 4 or 5 a day. And then
Yeah.
I was so ignorant to it because I finished the script in a week. And I was like, oh, let me just call CVS and just get more. And they were like, you can't just get more Klonopin. I'm like, what do you mean I can't get? I'm like, I was prescribed it. I'm like, I'm waiting to, like, I don't have a general, like, I don't have a doctor yet. Like, so what do I do? So I try to go to doctor's offices and to kind of write me a script. But I was like, all right, well, I guess I just don't need them anymore. And then I started Googling what could happen if you stop taking Klonopin. And the same thing that you could stop when you stop Klonopin or benzos happen with alcohol. So I'm like, oh shit. And like after 4 or 5 days, I went down with a seizure and I broke my collarbone. So I was like, all right, I'm just done with putting anything into my body. I'm just going to keep to my cigarettes. And I got into ice cream at night instead of alcohol and then put on a lot of weight. And that wasn't the answer. But yeah, like that first year of sobriety was really, it was tough. It was dark. It was humbling. I think it's necessary to kind of have that panic of like, oh man, I just feel like I need to catch up like with life and I need to like get myself in gear. And I think it's important to spend time with yourself because I left the restaurant business. So I didn't have experience working anywhere else. I got a job going door to door, not selling roofs, windows, and siding, but selling appointments for the real salesman to get like to go in and sell roofs. Pretty much a pyramid scheme of like those door to door people. And my coworkers were like 16. I was 28, 29.
Mm.
But it was, I needed to work. I needed to like make money. And then my wife was in banking and she kept telling me like, oh, well, just like maybe try out for like entry level positions places. At like different banks, and I'd have interviews, and I was literally being laughed at in the interviews because I just didn't have like I never interviewed for corporate before. I ended up taking real estate classes, and then I got an interview for an entry level loan processing position, and I was told like, hey, the only reason why I'm interviewing you is because you went to real estate school, and I worked in mortgages, and I love like real estate, and then I was like, all right, well, here's my chance, and they gave me the opportunity, and I just didn't look back, and I've been in banking now for about it'll be 8 years in March.
Wow, dude. So
yeah,
when was it that you got sober? Like what year is that? You said when you were 28?
Yeah, so it was October 22nd, 2016 was the day of this the liquor store seizures. And I've been sober ever since.
Yeah. Great job on that, man. I mean, what a turnaround from the way things were. So the girlfriend you're talking about here that brought you to the liquor store and was part of your life, is that your wife now?
Yeah. She, God bless her. We grew up together, so I think maybe that's probably why she didn't like get out of town. And I wouldn't have blamed her even if she did. If she was very close. She was leaving me that day. But I started learning to just kind of open up to her about like different feelings I had because I always just kept like my feelings like nobody really knew anything about like my family like dynamics. I never really talked about that kind of thing. She knew because she was friends with my brother growing up. But I just had to talk about my feelings a little bit more. I think she saw like the potential in me. I did go to college. I didn't graduate college, but I did make it to my senior year. I was on track at one point and once I got sober, like my problem was never like being nice or like being like thoughtful. Like my problem was just drinking, like so many, like I just killed so many relationships and like friendships because of like, listen, like you're so cool, like when you're sober, but you start drinking, especially hard alcohol, and you just become an asshole like sometimes. And that wouldn't happen every time like you drink, but like if you're drinking 6-7 days a week, you're going to have at least once or twice a week just being like annoying, like people like to say like, oh, I'm just a friendly, fun drunk. Like but you're not all the time. Like, no, like I don't know one person that hasn't had a really annoying night being drunk. I think that's also like such a
Yeah.
cop out to be like, oh, I'm just a fun drunk. It's like, not always. Like, you can't always be a fun drunk. Like, it's never going to work that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but we worked out, and she had two kids prior, and I think that also helped me because it kind of gave me instant responsibility, like as I got sober, and I used to like spend a lot of time, I still do like spend a lot of time with them. And then we had our own son 5 years ago when I started like writing the book. But yeah, now that first year was tough. And then after that, it was kind of more of like, I'm not worried about getting drunk. I'm worried about like just maintaining like my well-being, and what that looks like. And eventually like I quit the cigarettes, but yeah, no, yeah, we wound up getting married, and, we went through a lot. And I think like, she was sent to me to like fix me, like, and nobody was able to like get to like that point. And she stuck through.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool, man. How that, cause you always wonder too. I don't know, man. I can't help but wonder all the people in my life and the things that I put them through sort of in the mess or the mix of things. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know, man. I would like to sit here and say I would be able to stick around for it. But part of me is like, I don't know if I would be able to. So those people who do stick around, like, that's just incredible, man, that they.
Well, and then especially you get sober and it's like, you're kind of sitting there like, okay, like, do you know me? We've been together for this long, but it's like now you have to get to know me through another way. And I have to get to know you because I've spent most of my time like drunk, and like, not that I don't remember things, but there's a lot like I didn't remember like about like things that she'd say. And it's like, you kind of like start again, and it's like, is it worth it? And for me it was, and luckily for her it was too. But yeah, no, it was definitely dicey for a little while there though. Cause it's like, cause I know you're a pain, like I was a pain in the ass the first year I was sober, like everything, I had so much anxiety going out to eat. Being around alcohol, being around like people drinking. And like, it took a while for me to be comfortable around alcohol. And I think a lot of it too is because I was also trying to like establish myself in like a job and a career and stuff like that. So it's like, it was like a perfect concoction for like, I was having like panic attacks, like out in public a lot. And sometimes the only thing that fixes that is time, and like really just like getting time in under your belt. Like I got through the first year and I was like, okay, I'm still here. Like, I'm not like dying. Like there's nothing too bad happened. I had to lose some weight because I was eating ice cream every night. And then the second year was easier, and the third year was easier, and the fourth, and then it just kept getting better and better. But always in the back of like my head, like one sip of alcohol can take me right back to 10 years ago. Like always keeping that humble. Like there's not a day that goes by I don't think about it, but just, I have my work, I've got my family, I've got like, I like exercising. There are things that I like now, not to mention like we're a little bit older. So like if I go to bed at like 11 o'clock at night, like I wake up hungover still if I don't get enough sleep, or like if I eat like a bunch of sugar before bed, I legitimately wake up feeling hungover. I'm like, I don't know how people our age still even drink. It's, God bless them. Like I don't have anything against people that do drink. I'm not somebody that like tries to preach like how to live your life, but I don't even think I'd physically be able to do it anymore, even if I wanted to.
Well, yeah, I know when the kids get up, I mean, all throughout the night and everything too.
Yeah.
It is interesting, but I think even when we look back at your story here, just what we can normalize or what we can make sense of sort of being a human, because I think there's going to be some people that hear your story and say, I mean, you had so many sort of opportunities to kind of get off the train, right? It's like, why continue on? And then it's like the other people that are drinking now, it's like, why not just get off the train and sort of avoid all of the other stuff? But it's like in each individual journey has sort of this way of things that make sense, what gets normalized. And if we're not really willing to look at everything else that happened before, or like what are the reasons why we're drinking, or what is unhealed within, that what a lot of people talk about sort of a feeling a void or feeling like sort of a black hole of some sort. And then the alcohol of kind of, checking this box, right? If we're unwilling to look at any of that stuff, I think the drinking is going to make, some sense, oddly enough, even with the consequences and everything else that comes along with it.
Yeah, and I think the big thing too, like for me, like it was kind of humbling in a way, because when I was younger and I said, I'm never going to drink. And like, I'd like look at my mom, like, I can't believe like you're drinking. And I'd look at my brother, I can't believe like you're on drugs. And then I was in it, and it's like, I came out of it like, okay, I have the understanding now, just personally going through it. So that gave me more of like a understanding of my mother, an understanding of like how do I approach those conversations, like a little bit better with her. There was a lot of fighting. that used to go on because like when you're not an addict and you're not in it, it's easy to be like, well, if it's not like working out, like just stop doing it. Like what, like it's literally that simple, but it is that simple, but there's layers to it. So it's made me a little bit more like understanding, and it's actually brought us closer. You know, it's not like I don't have a close relationship with my parents. Like we are like very close. It's just it's very taxing, you know, especially like with my brother. He lives out in California now, and like even him, like I've kind of gotten an understanding with him. Like we don't like speak like that like too often, but you know, I know like he still like sometimes struggles here and there, but it makes me more open to be like, well, let's talk. Like if you want to talk, like instead of being like figure your shit out, like you know, like which is it's like a lot of people will kind of just say it's like, all right, well, what's going on? Because a lot of times it's not the drug that's like what's causing it. That's the solution. So
Yeah.
it's pretty full. It's the full circle. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what sometimes maybe we struggle to realize too when we get into all of this, right? I sure as heck did. I thought it was the drugs and the alcohol. Like if I quit doing that stuff, I was like, well, I'll be good to go. And then when I did quit, you know, when I had little stints of sobriety, when I did quit, I was like, man, I'm actually struggling way more now than maybe I kind of was before, because there goes like my little coping strategy. There goes like my connection, my identity. And even all the way back to when you shared in college too about it was celebrated, right? Like I just looked back to that stage of my life, and it was just the wilder things were, the more sideways they went. I was like, man, this is like celebrated of how cool this was and the big risk. And I think part of me too enjoyed that, of like the acceptance part of it. And
well, we were the generation. I mean, we were like the Four Loko generation. Like we were like, alcohol is not enough. Let's make it like liquid cocaine. Like, and we just like started mixing it. Like the big drinks at the bars, like when I was in my 20s, was vodka and Red Bulls. I mean, that's literally an upper and a downer, you know, and it's just ripping those. And it's like, we were the generation that tried to find more ways. I remember in the summer, you dump out the neck of a Corona and fill it with Bacardi Limon, and like, you know, it would taste the same, but having 3 or 4, you'd be hammered. And like, that's just what we did. There wasn't enough. We were the generation. It just wasn't enough. So then to be sober within that same generation too, it's just like, I kind of see like the result of some people. Like I've had friends pass away from alcoholism, and I'm lucky and I'm blessed to have made it through, because any one of those nights could have really gone sideways. But the end result's not pretty. Like it will kill you one way or another. And but I think now, like, there's more of like a push. You know, I'm seeing people in their first year of sobriety like thrive, because I think there are just so many outlets that they can go to. There's so many podcasts you can listen to. There's so many books, and I just think the younger generation, I think generationally, if that's even a word, we're starting to break that curse a little bit more and more. Like we're noticing and we're trying to change. And I feel like the younger generation, like I don't have like numbers, but it just doesn't seem like they're drinking as much. It doesn't seem like, you know, alcohol is like not the cool thing anymore.
Yeah.
And hopefully that continues with the next generation. You know, I'm going to have those conversations with my son. It's kind of the reason why like I wrote the book, because when he was born, like one of those nights he was just up all night, I was thinking, you know, what would happen if I fell off the wagon? What would that look like? What if the worst case scenario happened? And then what if I had to see it? You know, because it was during the COVID lockdown too. So like, being locked in like your house, like we were already kind of there. So like I just like wrote a book about a guy that dies in a drunk driving accident, and he's forced to watch his family kind of grieve, move on, and that kind of goes into his own like backstory of like his life, and then like what happens with his son as time goes on. And it's really a generational. That's another thing. Like I wish I had known growing up. You know, I thought like my brother's an addict. My mother's, you know, she struggles with alcohol. Like I've had like old like aunts and uncles struggle with it. But I wouldn't, right? Because it's just like an individual thing. But sure enough, I fell into the hole, you know, and everyone thinks they're like the odd one out. It's not going to affect them, but it is, you know, it does, one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really good point to hammer out there too, is I mean, it can affect anybody. I think there's a lot of numbers that say if you grow up in a home like that, even if you have that mindset you did, if you grow up in a home where people are struggling with drinking, alcoholism, whatever it is, then like the stats, the numbers are increased, you know, for people coming out of those environments too. Interesting with the book too. I mean, writing that, you know, coming up with that idea and writing it, is that what inspired you to it? Is like, hey, what if I fell off the wagon? What would it look like? Like, what really sparked you sort of in the direction? And what's the name of the book? And like, I'm really interested to hear sort of more of that, because it seems like a really heavy approach to all of this, right? I mean,
Yeah. So the book's called The Dog Bowl, and the inspiration kind of came out of like I always loved writing. Like if there's one thing I knew I was good at, like it was writing. I'd never really followed through with it. Like I took writing classes in college, but like there was you were told like there's no money in it, so like I didn't really pursue it that much. And then I was like 31, 32 at the time, and I was at that age where I was like, I never really explored like writing, and I don't want to be that guy that just never tries. And then I was thinking, and then that kind of rolled into me thinking about, like what if like my son was born? I'm like, man, like I'm at the time was almost 5 years sober. And I was like, that's a good amount of time, but like I could like, what if I fell off the wagon? And like, what if like something happened to me? Like, what if he fell down that path? And by writing the book, I kind of felt like I got a lot off my chest of just like the feelings that I had in my head that aren't always easy to like articulate. But if I wrote a story about someone going through it, it made it like it seemed like it made it easier for me. So I sat down, I thought of like I knew where I wanted to go with the story, and I just started typing. And every day for a few weeks, I'd type more and I'd like knock out chapters. And then I brought it to an end, and I was like, I think I have a manuscript. And I reached out to like 10 people, and I was like, hey, I wrote a manuscript. Do you want to read it? And every one of them said, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I heard back from 0 of them because, trying to get people to read a book, especially like a rough draft of something, it's not the easiest thing. But so I hired a developmental editor, and then life kind of happened. I think a lot of insecurity happened because I don't know. I think a big part of like people who suffer with addiction, like there's like this really big like insecure aspect. So I sat on it for a few years. And then now that I'll be 10 years sober this October, a couple months ago, I was like, I can't just sit on this. Like I feel a responsibility. Like I need to be helping out other people. I was blessed enough to get out of addiction. I need to like see where I can kind of get into other areas to like help others, whatever that may look like. So I pulled it back out. I got a copy editor. I worked through a lot of the editing stuff, and I decided to release it. And I put on Amazon for ebook and paperback and didn't really think too much of it. And then people started reaching out saying like, hey, I read your book. Like it's made me think about like alcohol and like my relationship with it, my kids' relationship with it. It's making me think about like my parents and drinking, and it's really resonating with people. It's fictional, but like it's honest. Like I didn't want to like dance around like the bush around like, like I don't know. Sometimes I feel like Hollywood can kind of glamorize alcohol sometimes, and I just wanted to keep like an emotionally, this is what addiction makes people feel like, from the aspect of being the addict and the aspect of seeing like a loved one. And then like then it's kind of taken off a little bit from there. Like I've done a couple of radio interviews. I just got into Barnes and Noble in my state. It's not like worldwide. I think you can order it like online on Barnes and Noble, but so it's getting some traction, and it's not like I'm not looking like my goal wasn't sales. It was like touching people. It was like getting people to like speak out. Some people I work with, like corporate settings especially, aren't like where people talk about like kind of like the things that they go through. And I've had people like on the side come up to me like separate and be like, hey, I just want to let you know, like my father died from alcoholism, and like my mother, struggles too. And like your book really hit me, and it's making me think about like my life, and like, and I'm like, that's all that matters. Like that's the big like takeaway for me. It's like, good. It's touching people. So now I know I wrote something that was like decent, and I'm also like maybe changing like some lives. And like, that's like, I think what we're all like here, like trying to do.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful, dude. I'm so glad you pulled it back out and, followed through with that. But I think you're so right there, man. It's like, it can feel strange at times, right? The shame or the guilt, or we should have known better, or all the things we might tell ourselves that kind of keep it quiet. And, maybe it's kind of strange or weird, or we don't drink. And because you hear people, I think, I always picked up on that early on. I would hear people make comments about stuff, and then I would say, well, I can't tell them because I've already heard, they don't know what I'm struggling with, but I've already heard what their viewpoint is about it. So I'm like, well, I can't say anything. But I think there is a lot of power in just owning our truth and being authentic about what we went through and how we're living. And you said something else there too. is that you feel, in a sense, is what I got from it anyway. You feel that like people in their first year are really making a ton of progress. I tell people that I work with all the time that, and I'm like, my first year, like you guys are just doing incredible stuff compared to the slow roll of when I first started this, like
I was
so
white knuckling it that whole first year, and I'm just seeing people like thrive. I know people that gave up drugs or alcohol and they play in bands and they're like on stage still playing show like or like starting podcasts and sometimes people finding God and leaning into the church and like they're out there like hey, like this is me, like I'm sober, like I like this is why. And like I was just like that whole first year, it was tough, but I think that's good. I'd rather like that helped me, and I think I'm not someone that dictates like how you should be sober and how you should stay sober. Like just do whatever it is that makes you sober and stay that way, and I think people are really leaning into that, and there's so many different avenues you can go down. And I think it's I think we're heading in the right direction as far as addiction. People get on like there are different places like they want to have like these heroin sites where like people can go like safely inject and stuff, and people like will be in an uproar, and those same people are getting hammered at the bar and driving home. So it's like you go to your place for your addiction, and then you're judging other people. And if like I hate to break it to people, but if alcohol was like invented today, it'd be illegal. And it should. And I don't think it. I don't know if I'm like in the avenue of like it should be. I think personal responsibility comes, but alcohol ruins more families than I think any other drug, because a lot of times like kids can't like have that outlet to get help. I would love to help kids. Like I think that'd be like my number one goal, but it's tough because it's like a parent that's an alcoholic's not going to take their kid. Like, let me drop you off to the meeting where you can talk about me, and so a lot of times I think kids just kind of suffer in silence. And, I think couples suffer in silence and they think this is just what life is. And that's how they fall into the same trap of repeating that cycle. And I think it's time that starts getting broken. And luckily kids have more access to like online. Like my son's 5 and he knows more about some of these like things on like my phone than I do. So it's, I think it's dangerous. I definitely keep a watch on that, but at the same time, it's a good, let him find like these paths and like learn from them,
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that too. I mean, I'm with you 100% on the impacts that alcohol has on society are massive, but it is. And I mean, I think it's one of those things that's just been normalized. We think about, even growing up, I relate it back a little bit to like the cigarette smoking. If you look up on YouTube, you can, they're before my time or what I remember, but you can see the commercials where people are, smoking cigarettes. And then it was like, okay, alcohol kind of took over. And even this other big announcement with Dr. Oz there too, of saying, don't have it for breakfast, right? We're not going to put any sort of cap on it, but, just don't have it for breakfast. It's like, okay, like, are we going backwards here? Are we just like we not looking at the fact that this isn't a highly addictive substance?
Right. And I think like for me, like my mother, like I feel horrible because she was that like Desperate Housewives era of like, all the moms are getting shit faced, and like that's like the reality, and they're all having fun, and everything's great, and it's like sunshine and rainbows. And then I think a lot of people realize that that's just not the case, and like that was back when they would be like, "Oh, drink wine, it's good for your heart, it's great for your heart." And then like now studies coming out, it's like that's not even good. Like it's not. There's no actual benefit to like putting it into your body, And it is a downer. It does make you feel like shit. Like it's not, Some people drink to kind of forget about their problems, and then like you wind up just like really like obsessing about them like when you drink, and it's I just can't, like when you're young and you're partying and that's, I'm not saying like experiment, like you got to do what you got to do, but at the same time like let's stop pretending that like there's any added benefit to it at all. Same with cigarettes like that. The fact that they used to advertise cigarettes. The Camel, I remember like seeing that all the time and like thinking, oh man, that's wicked cool. Like a Camel smoking like, cigarettes, and, it's like, oh, it's a stress relief. Like have it. And like, that's why I started smoking, like I was like 17 and I wasn't doing it to be cool. I knew like I was dealing with a lot at home, and I was like, I had my friend who looked like he was like 21 and he was buying me cigarettes. So you fall into those like advertisements, but it's the same with food too, man. Like I try to eat like healthier, and you'll see like Honey Nut Cheerios. Oh, it's heart healthy. And then you look at a box and it's got the same sugar content as Lucky Charms. Like it's, people fall for like these advertisements, and there's no regulation to it. So why, unfortunately, that's why like I just feel like so many people are so unhealthy these days. And like you said, like how are we going backwards? You know,
Yeah.
we've never known more than what we do now, and yet we're still going backwards. But
Yeah. It's interesting, man. I always say, I feel like in every show you watch where there's like, they're trying to like bust drug dealers or whatever, they're always like, follow the money, you know? So anytime I see something that I'm like, my spidey sense is like, okay, I wonder why that they've come out with sort of that approach now. And I'm like, follow the money, you know? It's just, it kind of makes you wonder, right? And I'm with you too. I'm not like this big anti-alcohol guy for people, or I mean, that's exhausting, right? But I do think that we deserve the truth. I think that people deserve the truth, and then they're going to make their choice, but at least help them make their choice based off facts, not based off of, you know, not have something for breakfast. Thank you, Derek, so much for jumping in, man. So you can grab the book, The Dog Bowl, on Amazon.
So this is what it'll look like, because I know it's got a kind of an odd title. If you search it on Amazon, you're going to literally have Dog Bowl show up, and then the book will be there. But yeah, no, I hope. So there's a part in the book where the main character kind of realize, because he doesn't realize like he's dead at first, and there's a big part of the book where like everything changes and involves a dog bowl, oddly enough. So yeah, jump in, take a read. It's a fun ride. It takes, you know, like a deep look into addiction. Like I like have like being funny and stuff. So like this, you know, I do kind of put a little bit of humor in it just to kind of keep it from like the dreadful like realities of it. But at the same time, there's a good message. And yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah. The Dog Bowl. And you mentioned there too earlier, to end with this too, like it's a fictional book, but would you feel it's safe to say you put a lot of sort of your experience or what you've seen kind of weaved in there too?
Yeah. There's some definitely stories in there that are roughly based off true stories, you know, and it doesn't shy away from, you know, to write a book, you kind of have to exaggerate a little bit, you know, like characters a little bit more extreme than, you know, like just to, you know, in a fictional book to keep it interesting. But there's definitely a lot of like similar stories that like I went through that like kind of come out in the book. You know, like anyone that knows me that reads the book will be like, oh, this is kind of rough. Is this like a memoir, like disguised as a fictional book? But the first manuscript I had it, like I really like kind of cut it down to like no, this isn't about me. It's not about my family. You know, it's, you know, I have a great relationship with my parents and stuff. So, but there are similarities, like, you know, from like family dynamics that are definitely like intertwined in, and I think that's why it's resonating with people, because the book is honest. It's fiction, but it's honest. Nobody will read it and be like, this isn't like realistic to what actually alcoholism is. Like you'll. If you're in that world, like you'll definitely pick up on some of the nuances.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Even you saying that too, of like adding another edge to it, just hearing your story. I'm like, man, there's you know what I mean? Like it's a wild ride. Yeah. Everything you've been through. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to pick up the Dog Bowl to, you know, see what it's all about, man. Thanks again, dude. Anything for closing you want to mention?
I think I'm good, man. Like I really just like appreciate like you taking the time. Like I kind of like I've been following you on Instagram, and I was like, I wrote the book, and I was like, do I reach out? Like I don't want to look like an idiot. Just be like, hey, I wrote a book, and you don't know me. But you know, I really appreciate you reaching out, and I think what you're doing is great, and I'm hoping to get there and reach people like through my like avenues, and you know, I think changing lives, if that's what the goal is, and you know, we're doing right.
Yeah, 100%, man. Really enjoyed connecting today. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, if you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. Don't forget to leave a review. Spotify, Apple, thumbs up on YouTube. Wherever you're listening to the show, it helps out so much. I'll drop Derek's contact information down in the show notes below. You can go ahead and contact him if you were able to connect with any part of his story or check out his book. And I'll see you on the next one.